The emergency alarm echoed through the Galactic Council chambers for the first time in 3,000 years. Ambassador Junho ran down the crystal hallway, his heart pounding. Other representatives from across the galaxy were rushing toward the main hall. Their faces showed something Junho had never seen before on these ancient beings: fear. Inside the massive chamber, holographic displays showed destruction on a scale that seemed impossible. Entire star systems were simply gone, not destroyed but erased, replaced with structures that hurt to look at. The images flickered with colors that should not exist in normal space. Counselor Wraith, a being who had lived for 4,000 years, spoke with a trembling voice. "The Voidborn have breached our dimension. They consume everything. We have lost contact with 47 worlds in the last month. Our fleets cannot stop them." Junho watched the battle recordings. The elder races had sent their mighty armadas. Ships that could crack planets fired weapons that bent physics itself. Nothing worked. The Voidborn ships simply absorbed the attacks and kept coming. Worse, they were learning. Each battle made them stronger. "We request a full retreat," announced another counselor. "We will abandon the outer territories and fortify the core worlds." "It is the logical solution." The chamber erupted in debate. Species that had not raised their voices in anger for centuries were shouting. The elder races were old, so very old. They had forgotten what it meant to truly fight. Their wars were fought with economics and diplomacy now. Their military existed mostly for show. Junho stood up. His voice cut through the chaos. "Earth offers its military fleet." The chamber fell silent. Several counselors laughed. One spoke with barely hidden contempt. "Humans, you have been in space for only 2 centuries. Your technology is primitive. Your largest ships are smaller than our escort vessels. What could you possibly offer?" Junho had expected this response. He tapped his data pad and new images appeared. 3 weeks ago, you contacted us about the Voidborn threat. We have been preparing since then. We have 8,000 warships ready to deploy. Every single one is crewed by volunteers. We have 3 million more people waiting if we had the ships for them. 8,000 ships is nothing, Wraith said, though his tone was less mocking now. The Calreth defense fleet had 20,000 ships. They lasted 4 hours against the Voidborn. The Calreth fleet followed standard defensive protocols, Junho replied. They formed a perimeter. They waited for the enemy to come to them. They retreated when casualties reached 12%. He paused. Humans do not fight that way. Another counselor spoke up. Then how do humans fight? Junho showed them footage from Earth's history. Battles where humans fought against impossible odds. Conflicts where surrender would have been logical, but humans chose to fight anyway. Wars where humans invented new tactics, new weapons, new strategies when old ones failed. The counselors watched in fascinated horror. "This is barbaric," one whispered. "Your species still knows how to wage total war." "Yes," Junho said simply. "We do, and right now that is what you need." The debate lasted 6 hours. Some counselors argued that letting humans lead would be shameful. Others worried that human tactics would cause too many casualties. A few quietly admitted they were afraid of what humans might become if given military authority. Finally, Wraith called for a vote. All in favor of allowing Earth's fleet to engage the Voidborn under human command with full council support? The vote passed barely. Many counselors abstained. Some voted no out of pride, but enough voted yes out of desperation. Junho immediately sent the message to Earth. Authorization granted. Send the fleet. Light years away, Admiral Deho received a transmission aboard his flagship. He was an older man, his hair gray, his face marked with scars from the Outer Colonies conflict. He had fought against human pirates and rebels. He had seen friends die, but he had never faced anything like this. "All ships, this is Admiral Deho. We have our orders. Begin final preparations. We deploy in 72 hours. Captain Minji approached him on the bridge. She was young, barely 30, but she had graduated top of her class at the Naval Academy. "Admiral, the elder races are sending advisors. They want to observe our tactics." Deho smiled grimly. "Let them observe. They will not like what they see." Across the Sol system, humanity mobilized. Earth's orbital shipyards, which had been building colony ships, switched to warship production. Mars sent its entire defense fleet. The asteroid belt miners contributed armed freighters. Even the corporate security forces volunteered their vessels. In the military academies, instructors pulled up every recorded Voidborn battle. They analyzed enemy patterns. Captain Minji led the tactical review. She noticed something others had missed. "The Voidborn fight perfectly," she said. "Too perfectly. They do not make mistakes. They do not improvise. They execute strategies flawlessly." Her colleague did not understand. "How is that a weakness?" "Because perfect execution means they cannot adapt quickly. They plan, then they execute. If we can move faster than they can plan, if we can create chaos they did not anticipate, we can win." The word spread through the fleet. Human commanders began planning attacks that made no logical sense. Strategies that violated every military doctrine the elder races had written. Tactics that were reckless, dangerous, and possibly insane. Suna, the xenobiologist, studied the Voidborn biology from the few samples recovered. She made a disturbing discovery. They are not really individuals. They are parts of a collective. When one dies, the others learn from it. They are getting stronger with every battle. "Then we need to kill them faster than they can learn," Deho said. The alien advisors arrived and were immediately disturbed. Human ships were being loaded with weapons that violated 3 different galactic treaties. Kinetic kill vehicles that could accelerate to a fraction of light speed. Nuclear warheads with yields measured in gigatons. Electronic warfare systems designed to cause maximum disruption. "These weapons are illegal," one advisor protested. "They cause unnecessary suffering." Commander Hyun, who led the weapons division, looked at the advisor with cold eyes. "We are not here to follow your rules. We are here to protect your people. The Voidborn do not care about treaties." On Earth, families said goodbye to their loved ones. The lunar memorial wall filled with recorded messages. Soldiers, pilots, and crew members spoke to cameras, telling their families they loved them just in case they did not come back. The elder race advisors watched these recordings. They did not understand. Why do they volunteer for this? Why do they accept that they might die? Ambassador Junho, who had returned to Earth for the departure ceremony, answered, "Because someone has to. Because if we do not fight, who will? We are terrified. But we are going anyway." The Armada assembled near Jupiter. 8,000 ships of various sizes and designs. They did not look impressive compared to elder race vessels. They were smaller, less elegant, built for function rather than beauty. Admiral Deho stood on the bridge of the Indomitable and looked at the fleet displayed on his screens. Behind him, Captain Minji coordinated with the other ships. Around the bridge, officers worked at their stations. Everyone was quiet, focused. "All ships report ready," Minji said. Deho took a deep breath. He thought about the millions of people depending on this fleet. He thought about the elder races who had finally, desperately asked for help. He thought about the Voidborn and the destroyed worlds they left behind. "Signal the fleet," he ordered. "Jump to hyperspace. Destination, Calrith system. We are going to war." The Armada vanished in flashes of light, leaving the Sol system empty. On Earth, people watched the skies and prayed. The elder races watched their sensors and wondered if they had made the right choice. The galaxy had cried for help. Humanity had answered with an Armada. Now they would see if human determination could succeed where ancient wisdom had failed. The Calrith system had once been beautiful. 6 planets orbited a yellow star, and 3 of those planets had been home to billions of Thexians. Now as the human Armada dropped out of hyperspace, they saw only ruins. The planets were gone, replaced with massive geometric structures that twisted in impossible directions. Ships floated dead in space, torn apart by weapons that defied understanding. Admiral Deho stood on the bridge and felt his stomach turn. The sensor readings made no sense. Space itself was damaged here. "How many Voidborn ships?" he asked. 30,000, Captain Minji replied, her voice steady despite the impossible odds. "They are forming a sphere around the central structure. They detected us immediately." The elder race advisors on the bridge began speaking rapidly in their own languages. One turned to Deho. "Admiral, we must retreat. We are outnumbered nearly 4-1. Standard protocol requires a minimum 3-1 advantage before engaging." Deho did not look at the advisor. He watched the Voidborn fleet on his display. They were already moving, forming perfect attack formations. "We did not come here to follow protocols." "Minji, execute dispersal pattern 7. Minji smiled. It was not a happy smile. "All ships, scatter pattern 7. Move now." The human fleet did something the advisors had never seen before. Instead of forming defensive lines or attack formations, the ships spread out in all directions. Within minutes, they occupied a volume of space hundreds of thousands of kilometers across. Each ship moved independently, following only basic coordination protocols. What are you doing? The advisor demanded. You are giving up all tactical coherence. The enemy can pick you off individually. That is what they think, Deho said. Minji, begin Phase 2. The Voidborn ships moved to engage. Their formations were perfect, their tactics flawless. They began targeting the nearest human ships with weapons that tore holes in space itself. Then the human ships opened fire. But they did not shoot at the Voidborn in front of them. Instead, they launched kinetic kill vehicles toward distant targets. Missiles that accelerated to incredible speeds, crossing vast distances before the Voidborn could react. Nuclear warheads that detonated not where the enemy was, but where they would be. Lieutenant Banhua led his fighter squadron in an attack run that made no tactical sense. His 40 fighters flew straight toward a Voidborn capital ship, launched their torpedoes, then scattered before the return fire arrived. The Voidborn vessel tried to track them, but human fighters were small, fast, and moving in random patterns. Banhua, your squadron is damaged, the flight controller called. Return to your carrier. Negative, Banhua replied. He looked at his display. 3 of his pilots were dead. 5 more had critical damage. We still have weapons. We are still in the fight. The Voidborn began adapting. Their perfect tactics adjusted to account for human unpredictability. But they were still thinking in terms of formations and defensive positions. They did not understand what they were facing. Commander Hyun sat in the weapons control center of a destroyer. His screens showed enemy positions, friendly positions, and thousands of calculations running simultaneously. He had spent 3 weeks analyzing Voidborn tactics. Now he put his theory to the test. Fire electronic warfare package, he ordered. The destroyer launched small drones that broadcasted on every frequency imaginable. False sensor readings, fake distress calls, simulated ship signatures. The drones flooded the battlefield with information warfare. The Voidborn network stuttered. For just 2 seconds, their perfect coordination failed. In those 2 seconds, human ships launched missiles at targets that were suddenly undefended. Explosions bloomed across space. 6 Voidborn ships died. It was not many compared to their total numbers, but it proved something important. They could be hurt. All ships focus on network disruption, Daiho ordered. Keep them confused. Do not let them coordinate. Fleet Captain Yuna commanded the carrier Resolute. She watched her pilots launch, knowing many would not return. Fighter combat in space was brutally short. Either you killed the enemy quickly or they killed you. There was no middle ground. Yuna, we have lost contact with Carrier Group 3, her communications officer reported. Yuna checked her display. The carrier Phoenix was gone, along with all its fighters and crew. 4,000 people dead in an instant. She felt the weight of command pressing down on her. Deploy reserve squadrons. Fill the gap. One of her pilots, Ensign Hana, volunteered to fly despite having just returned from a previous sortie. Ma'am, I can still fight. Yuna wanted to refuse. Hana had already flown 3 missions. She was exhausted. But they needed every pilot. Go, stay safe. Hana launched knowing she probably would not stay safe. She flew her fighter toward a cluster of Voidborn vessels, her hands steady on the controls despite her fear. Around her, other fighters died. Explosions lit up space like deadly fireworks. The battle had been raging for 6 hours. The human fleet had lost 900 ships. The elder race advisors were horrified. This is madness, one kept repeating. You must retreat. Captain Minji pulled up the tactical display. Look closer. We have destroyed 2,000 Voidborn ships. Our loss ratio is actually favorable. Favorable? The advisor stared at her. You have lost over 100,000 people. And they have lost billions of tons of war material, Minji replied coldly. This is what war actually looks like. It is not clean. It is not pretty, but we are winning. Dr. Jiwon worked in the science section, analyzing data from every engagement. She noticed something interesting. When human ships destroyed Voidborn vessels in rapid succession, there was a delay before the enemy adapted. Admiral, I think I found their weakness. They share information across their network, but it takes time. If we can overwhelm them with simultaneous attacks from multiple directions, their coordination breaks down. Daiho understood immediately. Minji, organize strike groups. I want 50 ships attacking from 50 different directions, all hitting at the exact same moment. Can you coordinate that? Minji worked her console, sending orders to scattered ships across the battlefield. This was what humans did better than anyone. They adapted. They changed plans on the fly. They saw opportunities and took them. Strike groups ready, she reported. 30 seconds to simultaneous attack. The countdown reached 0. 50 groups of human ships attacked 50 different void-born positions at exactly the same instant. The enemy network tried to process the information, tried to coordinate responses, tried to adapt, but it was too much, too fast. For 30 seconds, the void-born formation collapsed into chaos. In those 30 seconds, humans killed another 1,000 enemy ships. Sergeant Taewon led a Marine boarding party onto a damaged void-born vessel. His team moved through corridors that seemed to exist in more than 3 dimensions. The walls were alive, pulsing with energy. The technology was beyond anything humanity had created. Plant the charges, Taewon ordered. His Marines placed antimatter explosives throughout the ship. They worked quickly, knowing the Voidborn could repair the damage and resume fighting. As they evacuated, one of his Marines asked, "Sergeant, what are we even fighting? These things do not seem alive." Taewon did not have an answer. The Voidborn were not biological. They were not mechanical. They were something else entirely. "Does it matter?" "They are killing people. We stop them. That is all we need to know." The antimatter charges detonated. The Voidborn ship exploded, taking 3 nearby vessels with it. The explosion tore a hole in space itself, creating a rupture that took several minutes to close. 12 hours into the battle, the impossible happened. The Voidborn fleet began to withdraw. Not retreat, but actual withdrawal. They pulled back toward their dimensional structure, reorganizing their formations. On the Indomitable's bridge, everyone stared at their displays in disbelief. "They are leaving," Minji said. "No," Daeho corrected. "They are adapting. They will return with new tactics. But we hurt them. We made them think twice." He pulled up the casualty reports. The numbers were staggering. 1,200 ships destroyed, 73,000 people dead, hundreds more wounded. The elder race advisors looked at the numbers in shock. "Was it worth it?" one asked quietly. Daeho turned to face the advisor. His eyes were hard, his voice harder. "They came to destroy everything. We stopped them. Yes, it was worth it. Every single life lost was worth it if it saves billions more." He activated the fleet-wide channel. "All ships, this is Admiral Daeho. Well done. We have driven the enemy back. We have proven they can be beaten. But the war is not over. We will repair, we will resupply, and we will be ready when they return." Fleet Captain Yuna began the most difficult task, reading the names of the dead over the fleet channel. It was a human tradition, born from ancient wars. Every name was spoken aloud. It took 6 hours. The entire fleet listened in silence. When the last name was read, Yuna added her own words. "They fought so others might live. They gave everything so the galaxy might survive. We honor them by continuing the fight." In the Galactic Council chambers, the elder races watched the battle recordings over and over. They saw human ships ramming enemy vessels when their weapons failed. They saw fighters making suicide runs to take out critical targets. They saw commanders making decisions that should have been impossible to make under such pressure. Ambassador Junho received. The medical bay aboard the carrier Resolute smelled of antiseptic and burned flesh. Field medic Soman moved from bed to bed, treating injuries that should not exist in normal space. Voidborn weapons did not just damage bodies. They damaged reality itself, wounds that refused to heal properly, burns that existed in multiple dimensions at once. "How is she?" Fleet Captain Yuna asked, standing beside a bed where Ensign Hana lay unconscious. Soman checked the monitors. "Stable, but barely." Her fighter took a direct hit from a Voidborn weapon. The energy passed through her shielding like it was not there. "She has radiation damage, but also something else. Something I have never seen before." Yuna touched Hana's hand gently. The young pilot had flown 6 missions in 12 hours before her fighter was hit. She had destroyed 4 enemy ships. "Will she fly again?" "I do not know," Somin admitted. "I am a doctor, not a miracle worker. And honestly, I'm not sure she should fly again even if she recovers. The psychological trauma alone," she trailed off. The medical bay held 200 wounded. Another 300 were in other carriers. Salman had been working for 16 straight hours. Her hands shook from exhaustion. But people kept getting hurt, so she kept working. Lieutenant Banwa visited his squadron in the medical bay. Out of 40 pilots who started the battle, only 23 survived. The others were names now, spoken during the memorial reading. He sat beside his wingman whose legs were gone below the knees. "We got them good, boss," the wingman said, forcing a smile. "Did you see that capital ship explode?" Bonwa nodded. He had seen it. He had also seen 3 of their squadron mates die to make that explosion happen. "You did well. Rest now." After his wingman fell asleep, Bonwa walked to the observation deck. Through the window he could see the void-born structure in the distance. It hurt to look at directly. The geometry was wrong. Angles that should not exist in 3-dimensional space. Commander Gi-hun found him there. Gi-hun ran intelligence operations for the fleet. He looked tired like everyone else. "We need to talk about what we found." Bonwa turned from the window. "What did you find?" "The Voidborn are not invading," Gi-hun said quietly. "They are running. My analyst reviewed all the data. Their movements, their strategies, everything points to desperation, not conquest." "Running from what?" Gi-hun pulled up a datapad showing dimensional readings. "Something worse. Something that exists beyond our understanding of reality. The Voidborn broke into our dimension because their own dimension is dying. They are refugees, not conquerors." Bonwa felt his anger twist into something more complex. "They are still killing billions of people." "Yes," Gi-hun agreed. "But understanding their motivation matters. If we kill them all, whatever they are running from might come for us next." Admiral Daeho received Gi-hun's report in his ready room. Captain Minji was with him, along with Dr. Jiwon and several other senior officers. They studied the intelligence in silence. "This changes everything," Dr. Jiwon said finally. "We cannot just fight them. We need to understand what they are fleeing." Daeho rubbed his eyes. He had not slept in 30 hours. "First, we need permission from the Galactic Council to even consider negotiation. Many of them want the Voidborn exterminated completely." "Can you blame them?" Minji asked. 47 worlds destroyed. Trillions dead. "No, I cannot blame them," Daeho admitted. "But if we do not find another solution, this war will never end. Worse, we might be next when whatever scared the Voidborn decides to invade." He sent an encrypted message to Ambassador Junho on Earth. The response came back 8 hours later, after Junho had consulted with both Earth's government and the Galactic Council. "You are authorized to attempt communication, but proceed with extreme caution." Dr. Jiwon led the team that would try to make contact. She was a xenobiologist, trained in first contact protocols, but nothing in her training prepared her for talking to beings from another dimension. "How do we even start?" she asked her team. "They do not communicate like we do. They might not even think like we do." One of her researchers suggested using mathematics, universal constants that any intelligent species would recognize. They began broadcasting simple equations toward the Voidborn structure, hoping for a response. For 3 days, nothing happened. The Voidborn forces remained at the edge of the system, neither attacking nor retreating. The human fleet used the time to repair damage and resupply from the support vessels that had jumped in from Seoul. Commander Hyun worked around the clock improving their weapons. "We hurt them," he told his team, "but we need to hurt them more efficiently. Every battle they adapt, we need to adapt faster." His engineers developed new electronic warfare systems, improved kinetic weapons with better targeting, even experimental energy shields based on recovered Voidborn technology. It was dangerous work. 3 engineers died when a prototype shield collapsed and created a miniature black hole. On the 4th day, the Voidborn responded, not with weapons but with a transmission. It was not language, not in any traditional sense. It was pure information, compressed into a format that nearly crashed the computers trying to decode it. Dr. Jiwon worked with her team for 12 straight hours to understand the message. When they finally decoded it, she immediately called for Admiral Daeho. "They want to talk," she said, her voice shaking with exhaustion and excitement. "They are willing to send a representative. But they are afraid." The message made that clear. "They fear we will simply kill any envoy they send." Daeho made a decision that would either save millions of lives or doom the fleet. "Tell them we agree. They can send 1 ship unarmed to meet with us. We will not attack unless they attack first." The Galactic Council exploded when they heard about this. Ambassador Junho spent hours in emergency sessions defending the decision. Many counselors were furious. "You gave them a chance to study our defenses," one accused. "You showed weakness." "I showed them we can be reasoned with," Junho replied. "And if this fails, we can always go back to killing them. But if we never try to talk, we might miss the only chance to end this war peacefully." The meeting took place on a neutral asteroid, halfway between the human fleet and the void-born structure. Admiral Deho went personally, against the advice of his officers. Captain Minji, Dr. Jiwan, and Sergeant Taewan accompanied him. They wore combat armor and carried weapons just in case. The void-born representative was difficult to look at. It shifted between forms, sometimes appearing solid, sometimes transparent. It spoke through a device that translated its thoughts into sounds humans could understand. "We mean no harm," it said. The voice was mechanical, emotionless. "We flee the consuming dark. Our dimension dies. We sought refuge here." Dr. Jiwan asked the critical question. "Why did you destroy the worlds? Why kill so many?" "We did not understand you were alive," the Voidborn replied. "Your life exists in 3 dimensions plus time. We exist in 7 dimensions. To us, your worlds appeared as structures, not homes. When we tried to convert them into usable space, we did not realize we were committing murder. The humans absorbed this information. It was almost too much to process. The Voidborn had destroyed worlds out of ignorance, not malice." "What is the consuming dark?" Deho asked. The Voidborn showed them. The translation device projected images directly into their minds. What they saw made Somin vomit inside her helmet. Taewon stumbled backward. Even Deho, a veteran of countless battles, felt terror grip his heart. The consuming dark was entropy incarnate. A force that existed beyond dimensions, beyond reality itself. It did not just destroy matter. It destroyed the possibility of matter existing. Wherever it passed, space itself ceased to be. "It consumed our dimension," the Voidborn said. "We fled here. But it will follow. It always follows." Back on the Indomitable, Deho called an emergency meeting of all ship commanders. He showed them what the Voidborn had revealed. The response was immediate and unanimous. They had to prepare for something far worse than the Voidborn. "How long until this consuming dark arrives here?" Captain Minji asked. "The Voidborn do not know," Deho replied. "It could be years. It could be decades. But it will come." Lieutenant Bonhua spoke up from the holographic display transmitting from his carrier. "So what do we do? Do we help the Voidborn or do we kill them and hope the dark never finds us?" It was Field Captain Yuna who provided the answer. "We do what humans do best. We face the impossible and find a way through it. We help the Voidborn stabilize their presence in our dimension. We prepare defenses against the consuming dark. And we convince the galaxy to fight alongside us." The fleet voted. It was not a military decision anymore. It was a moral one. Every captain cast their vote. The result was overwhelming. They would try to save the Voidborn and prepare for the coming darkness. Admiral Deho sent his recommendation to the Galactic Council. Ambassador Junho presented it in the most important session in galactic history. For the first time, the elder races had to make a choice not between peace and war, but between revenge and survival. The debate lasted for 3 days. Some counselors wanted to exterminate the Voidborn regardless of the consequences. Others argued for mercy. A few recognized the larger threat and demanded immediate preparation for the consuming dark. Finally, Counselor Wraith called for a vote. All in favor of accepting the Voidborn as refugees and preparing joint defenses against the... 2 months after the Battle of Calreth, the galaxy looked very different. The human fleet remained on station, but now they worked alongside Voidborn engineers rather than fighting them. The cooperation was difficult, sometimes painful, but it was happening. Dr. Jiwan supervised the construction of dimensional stabilizers around the Calreth system. These massive structures, built with combined human and Voidborn technology, would prevent uncontrolled dimensional breaches. They would also provide early warning if the consuming dark approached. "How many of these do we need?" she asked the Voidborn engineer she worked with most often. The humans had started calling it Builder, because its actual name could not be pronounced in any human language. "Thousands," Builder replied through its translation device. "We must fortify entire regions of space. The task will take years, perhaps decades." Jiwan looked at the half-finished stabilizer floating in space. It was beautiful in its own way, a blend of human practicality and Voidborn complexity. "Then we better get started." On Earth, Ambassador Junho faced his greatest challenge yet. The Galactic Council wanted humanity to train their military forces in human tactics, but many elder races were reluctant to admit they needed help from the young, primitive species. "We have been defending the galaxy for 50,000 years, one counselor said stiffly. We do not need training from beings who only reached space 2 centuries ago. Junho had learned patience in his years as ambassador. Then perhaps you can explain why humanity, with inferior technology and smaller ships, succeeded where your advanced fleets failed. The counselor had no answer. The truth was obvious to everyone. The elder races had forgotten how to fight. They had committees and protocols and rules of engagement. Humans had determination and the willingness to sacrifice. Finally, Counselor Wraith proposed a solution. Let us create a joint military force. Humans will provide tactical training. The elder races will provide technology and resources. Together we will build something stronger than either could alone. The Galactic Defense Force was born from that compromise. Within 6 months, training facilities were established on 12 worlds. Human instructors taught alien soldiers tactics that seemed reckless and dangerous because they were reckless and dangerous. That was the point. Captain Minji took command of the training program. She had been promoted to Commodore for her actions at Calreth. Now she faced a different kind of battle, teaching ancient civilizations to think like warriors again. Her first class consisted of 200 officers from various elder races. They arrived expecting lectures and simulations. Instead, Minji threw them into live fire exercises on the first day. Warfare is chaos, she told them as alarms blared and simulated weapons fire filled the training station. You cannot prepare for chaos with orderly drills. You must learn to function when everything is going wrong. A Thexian officer objected. This is dangerous. Someone could be seriously injured, Minji stared at him. Yes, they could. In a real battle, someone will definitely be injured. Many will die. Would you prefer to learn that lesson here, where medics are standing by, or in actual combat where there is no safety net? The officer had no response. The exercise continued. By the end of the first week, 3 officers had quit. The rest were starting to understand. Lieutenant Bonhua led fighter training. His methods were even more intense than Minji's. He pushed his students to the edge of their abilities, then pushed harder. Several alien pilots complained to their governments. Bonhua did not care. My squadron lost 17 pilots at Calreth, he told a complaining student. 17 people who were my friends. They died because the Voidborn were better than us. I will not let that happen again. So you will train until you can fly in your sleep, fight while injured, and make life or death decisions in milliseconds. Or you will quit. Your choice, the students stayed. Most of them did. They began to understand that Bonhua's harshness came from caring, not cruelty. He wanted them to survive. Admiral Daeho spent his time traveling between star systems, meeting with military leaders and politicians. He was getting old, his hair now completely white, his movements slower. But his mind remained sharp. We need 10 million ships in the Defense Force within 5 years, he told a gathering of admirals from across the galaxy. The consuming dark will not wait for us to be ready. We must be ready now, an elder race admiral objected. 10 million ships? That will take decades to build. The resource requirements alone will be met, Daeho interrupted, because the alternative is extinction. Start building, start training, start preparing, or start dying. Those are your only options. His bluntness shocked the elder races. They were not used to such direct speech. But they also could not argue with his logic. Shipyards across the galaxy began working at maximum capacity. Meanwhile, Commander Hyun continued his work on weapons and defenses. He had a new project now, creating weapons that could fight the consuming dark itself. The problem was that normal weapons would not work. You could not shoot entropy. You could not bomb nothingness. We need to think differently, he told his team. The consuming dark destroys the possibility of existence, so we need to create weapons that reinforce existence itself. It sounded like philosophy, not engineering. But Hyun's team was composed of the best minds humanity and the Voidborn could provide. Together, they began developing reality anchors, devices that would stabilize space-time against the dark's erosive effects. Field Medic Soman had become the head of the new Galactic Medical Corps. Her experience treating Voidborn weapon injuries made her the expert on dimensional trauma. She established medical facilities on every training world and combat station. Physical wounds we can treat, she told her staff, but the psychological damage is harder. Many of our soldiers are suffering from what we call combat stress. The elder races do not even have words for it because their people never faced such intense warfare. She created treatment programs based on human psychology, adapted for alien minds. It was difficult work. Some species processed trauma completely differently than humans, but slowly they made progress. Ensign Hana had recovered enough to return to flight duty. She was assigned to a training squadron, teaching new pilots the lessons she learned at Calreth. Her students were a mix of humans and aliens, all eager but untested. "Fear is normal," she told them. "I was terrified during my first combat mission. I am still terrified every time I launch. But fear keeps you alert. It keeps you alive. The trick is to function despite the fear, not to eliminate it." One of her alien students asked, "How do you function when you know you might die?" Hana thought about her answer carefully. "You remember why you are fighting. You remember the people depending on you. And you focus on the mission, not the danger. One moment at a time, one decision at a time. That is how you survive." Fleet Captain Yuna commanded one of the new mixed species carrier groups. Her crew consisted of humans, Thexians, and 3 other races. The integration was challenging. Different species had different ways of working, different communication styles, different values. But Yuna made it work through simple respect. She learned about each culture. She adapted her command style to what worked best for her crew. She led by example, showing that cooperation was possible if everyone was willing to try. "We are stronger together than apart," she told her crew. "Humans have courage and adaptability. Thexians have incredible spatial awareness. The Kelrath have lightning-fast reflexes. Each species brings strengths. If we combine them properly, we become unstoppable." Her carrier group became the model for integration. Other commanders visited to learn her methods. Yuna shared everything she knew freely. This was not about personal glory. This was about survival. Sergeant Taewon trained the first integrated Marine units. Taking soldiers from different species and forging them into cohesive combat teams was incredibly difficult. Aliens who had never experienced physical combat trained alongside humans who grew up with it. "War is not just about weapons and tactics," Taewon taught. "It is about trust. You must trust the soldier next to you to cover your back. You must trust your commander to make good decisions. You must trust yourself to do your duty when everything goes wrong." His training was brutal. Marines ran combat simulations where everything that could go wrong did go wrong. They learned to fight injured, to operate with damaged equipment, to make do with whatever they had available. By the end of training, species differences did not matter anymore. The Marines were a unit, bonded by shared suffering and mutual respect. They would fight together and, if necessary, die together. Commander Gi-hoon's intelligence network expanded across the galaxy. His analysts monitored for any signs of the consuming Dark's approach. They also tracked the Voidborn refugees, ensuring they kept their promise to harm no more worlds. "We have a problem," Gi-hoon reported to Admiral Daeho. "Some Voidborn groups are not cooperating. They still try to convert our space into something they can inhabit despite the agreements." Daeho sighed. He had hoped this would not happen. "Are they hostile?" "Not hostile, just desperate. They are dying in our dimension. It is like us trying to live underwater. Technically possible, but incredibly difficult. Then we need to build more habitats for them, spaces where they can exist comfortably without destroying our reality." It was another. 5 years had passed since humanity sent its armada to Calreth. The galaxy was unrecognizable from what it had been. Where once there were isolated civilizations connected only by trade and diplomacy, now there existed a unified defense network spanning thousands of star systems. Admiral Daeho had retired from active command, though his influence remained enormous. He served as senior advisor to the Galactic Defense Force, which now numbered 12 million ships. His hair was white, his back bent with age, but his eyes still held the fire of a warrior. He stood in the memorial hall on Earth's orbital station, looking at the wall of names. 73,000 humans had died at Calreth. Thousands more had died in the years since, training accidents and patrol missions and skirmishes with rogue Voidborn groups. Each name was carved into the crystal wall, lit from behind so they glowed softly. "Do you ever regret it?" Ambassador Junho asked, joining him at the wall. Junho was older too, his once dark hair now streaked with gray. Daeho touched one of the names gently. It belonged to a young ensign he had known personally. "Every day, but I would make the same choice again. They died so others could live." "That matters," Junho nodded. "The Galactic Council wants you to speak at the memorial dedication. Every member race will attend. It is a significant honor. I am not good at speeches, Deho protested. You are good at telling the truth. That is all they need to hear. The memorial dedication was the largest gathering in galactic history. Representatives from every council race attended, along with delegations from the Voidborn. Admiral Minji, now a full admiral commanding the Third Fleet, attended in dress uniform. Captain Yuna, promoted to Fleet Admiral, brought her entire command staff. Lieutenant Banhua, now a wing commander, flew in honor guard formation overhead. Deho walked slowly to the podium. He looked out at the assembled crowd. Thousands of beings from dozens of species. He thought about what to say, how to explain what the last 5 years had meant. When the galaxy cried for help, humanity sent an armada, he began, his voice amplified across the station. Not because we wanted glory or power, not because we were fearless or invincible. We answered because someone had to, because when people are dying and worlds are burning, you do not ask if you can win, you ask if you can help. He paused, gathering his thoughts. We lost 73,000 people at Calreth. We have lost thousands more since then. Every one of those losses hurt. Every one of those names on that wall represents a family who grieves, friends who mourn, a life cut short. The crowd was silent, listening, but those deaths were not meaningless. They bought time for the galaxy to prepare. They showed the elder races that the Voidborn could be fought. They proved that courage and determination could overcome superior technology. Most importantly, they created this moment. He gestured to the crowd, to the mix of species standing together. 5 years ago, the galaxy was fractured. Each race stood alone, afraid to risk themselves for others. Today we stand united. Human ships fly alongside Thexian vessels. Voidborn engineers work beside elder race scientists. We have built something that never existed before, a galaxy willing to fight for itself. Dr. Jiwan stood in the crowd listening. Her dimensional stabilizer network now protected 500 star systems. Her team had grown to include scientists from every major race. Together they were creating defenses that might hold back the consuming dark. Deho continued his speech. The threat is not gone. The consuming dark still approaches. But we are ready in ways we were not 5 years ago. We have the ships. We have the weapons. We have the training. Most importantly, we have the will. Commander Hyun had finally succeeded in creating weapons that could fight entropy itself, reality anchors that reinforced space-time, quantum disruptors that could destroy the dark's ability to propagate, dimensional barriers that could contain breaches. They were untested in actual combat, but the theory was sound. We do not know if we will win, Deho said honestly. The consuming dark is beyond anything we have faced before. But I know this, we will fight. We will fight with everything we have. We will fight until the last ship, the last soldier, the last breath. Because that is what you do when existence itself is threatened. Field Medic Soman commanded a medical fleet now, 50 hospital ships equipped to handle any kind of trauma. Her staff included healers from a dozen races, all trained in both physical and psychological care. They were ready for the casualties that would inevitably come. Deho's voice grew stronger. Humanity taught the galaxy something important. Not that war is glorious because it is not. Not that death is meaningless because it is not. We taught you that sometimes you must fight even when victory is uncertain. You must sacrifice even when the cost is terrible. You must stand even when every logical calculation says to run. Ensign Hana, now Captain Hana commanding her own fighter wing, listened with tears in her eyes. She had survived Calreth. She had survived 5 years of training and patrol missions. She would survive whatever came next, not because she was fearless, but because she had learned to function despite fear. The elder races have relearned something they forgot, Deho said. You have technology that can reshape worlds. You have wisdom earned over millennia, but you had forgotten that sometimes wisdom means accepting risk. Sometimes survival requires sacrifice. Counselor Wraith stood among the crowd, remembering his initial skepticism when humans first offered help. He had thought them primitive, reckless, too young to understand the complexities of galactic politics. He had been wrong. Humans understood something more important than politics. They understood that some things were worth dying for. Deho looked directly at the assembled representatives. We built this defense force together. Human tactics combined with elder race technology. Voidborn dimensional knowledge combined with our understanding of physical reality. Every species contributed their strengths. That is how we will survive, not as separate races but as one galaxy. Sergeant Taewin commanded a division of Marines now, 10,000 soldiers from 20 different species. They had trained together so long that species differences no longer mattered. They were simply soldiers, brothers and sisters in arms, ready to face whatever came. In the coming battle, many of us will die, Daeho said bluntly. That is the nature of war. But every death will buy time for someone else to live. Every sacrifice will protect someone who cannot protect themselves. That is why we fight, not for glory or conquest, but for the simple right of all beings to exist. Admiral Minji felt pride swell in her chest. She had been there at the beginning, a young captain on the bridge of the Indomitable. Now she commanded fleets that spanned star systems. The responsibility was crushing, but she bore it willingly. This was her purpose. Daeho's speech was nearing its end. When historians look back on this era, they will not remember individual battles or specific tactics. They will remember this. When the galaxy faced extinction, different species came together. They set aside old prejudices and ancient rivalries. They fought as one. Fleet Admiral Yuna commanded the carrier forces, 3,000 carriers and their fighter wings. She had seen combat at Calreth. She had trained countless pilots. She had watched some of them die. Each loss hurt, but she continued because that was what commanders did. The consuming dark will come, Daeho said with certainty. When it does, we will be ready, not because we have perfect plans or invincible weapons. We will be ready because we have something the dark does not. We have hope. We have determination. We have the willingness to fight for something greater than ourselves. Wing Commander Bonhua led training exercises daily, pushing new pilots to their limits. His methods were still harsh, still demanding. But casualty rates were down. Survival rates were up. His students graduated as skilled pilots ready for actual combat. That was all that mattered, Daeho concluded his speech. When the galaxy cried for help, humanity sent an armada. But it was not just human ships that saved us. It was the courage of every species that chose to stand and fight. It was the cooperation between former strangers. It was the willingness to risk everything for a chance at survival. He looked at the wall of names one last time. These people died so we could have this moment. They died so we could build this alliance. They died so the galaxy would have a chance. We honor them not with words but with action. We honor them by being ready, by fighting when the time comes, by never giving up no matter how dark things become. The crowd stood in silence for a long moment. Then slowly one person began to applaud. Then another. Soon the entire assembly was applauding, a sound that echoed through the station. It was not celebration. It was acknowledgement of sacrifice, respect for courage, and determination to be worthy of what had been given. Later that day, Commander Gi-hun received the alert he had been dreading for 5 years. Deep space sensors detected unusual readings at the edge of explored space. Dimensional instability, reality distortions, energy patterns that matched nothing in any database. The consuming dark had arrived. Gi-hun sent the alert immediately. Across the galaxy, alarms began to sound. Defense forces mobilized. Civilians began evacuation procedures. The preparations of 5 years were about to be tested. Admiral Minji took command of the forward response fleet. 3 million ships,